The medical equipment installed at the new ENT hospital are as follows: CT scan apparatus, portable X-ray machine, electrosurgical equipment, Suivez system cum micro drill, nerve stimulator apparatus, automatic clinical chemistry analyzer, ENT operating microscope, cochlear implant, and the Bera room equipment. Mr. Speaker, sir, I wish to inform the House that both the CT scan and the digital portal X-ray machine are being used for diagnostic and therapeutic purposes for the positive COVID-19 patients by the X-ray department at the ENT hospital. These two equipment are of utmost importance in the prognosis of the pulmonary status of positive COVID-19 patients. Mr. Speaker, sir, acute COVID-19 cases essentially manifest themselves through respiratory distress. The WHO and in various international protocols, thoracic scanners are considered as a diagnostic tool whenever a patient's PCR is negative, while his clinical status tends to indicate a probable infection. In addition, thoracic scans can be helpful to assess the initial status of a COVID-19 case with signs of respiratory distress and for the follow-up of a patient. In this case, thoracic scans are made at regular intervals to assess the evolution of the pulmonary status. Such scans are capital in order to adapt to the therapeutic treatment administered to the patient. Likewise, the scanner is helpful in atypical cases. In the event of a brutal and sudden aggravation of a patient's state of health, a thoracic scan can be used to detect pulmonary embolism, pneumothorax, and pulmonary interstitial emphysema. At a date, CT scans were carried out on more than 100 patients, and more than 1,000 X-rays have been carried out on those positive COVID-19 cases. Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm further informed that the following medical equipment not currently in use at the ENT hospital have been shifted to Victoria Hospital. The electrosurgical unit, which is a cutting and coagulation tool, the Suivez system cum micro drill, which is a rotating device for cutting and aspiration of tissues, the Suivez system cum micro drill, a rotating device for cutting and aspiration of tissues, and the nerve stimulator used to stimulate nerves. All these equipment are used for ENT surgery. Mr. Speaker, sir, I am also informed that the automatic clinical chemistry analyzer, which is an apparatus used for blood analysis, and the ENT operating microscope, which is used for microscopic surgery, have not been relocated as they are costly and sensitive equipment, which might get damaged due to relocation. However, the servicing of these two equipment are being done on a regular basis. As regard to the cochlear implant and the Bera room equipment, these would be shifted to Floreal Mediclinic, where a Bera room is already being set up.
Mr. Speaker, in the last audit report, mention is made for medical equipment for some 67 million rupees, but have been delivered at the new ENT hospital. Medical equipment already installed and commissioned were lying dormant, and warranty period has already lapsed. Is the Honourable Minister aware of this remark of the Director of Audit, and what actions had been taken?
Mr. Speaker, sir, I request the Honourable Member to come up specifically on this subject matter. I'm ready to give all the information.
My question, I think, was very specific. Medical equipment at ENT hospital, and the remark made by the Director of Audit is specific. Medical equipment at ENT hospital. I can't be more specific on that.
Mr. Speaker, sir, all equipment at ENT hospital, I've already given the information. What are the equipment that have been shifted to Victoria Hospital? What are the equipment that have been used at ENT hospital? Now, this question is more related to the audit report. I would be ready to answer the question on audit report if the question would be addressed to me.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Can we know from the Honourable Minister, over and above health services provided to COVID-positive patients, are there any other health services currently available or dispensed at the new ENT hospital? Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, sir. So the other services that are supposed to be at ENT hospital. Mr. Speaker, sir, the ENT hospital were providing services at the emergency, the OPD, and the outpatient and the inpatient department, and the operation services all have been shifted to Victoria Hospital. As regard to services like maxillofacial services, they have been shifted to an area health center.
Speaker, as of July 2020, there were long waiting lists for CT scan, and the new CT scan at ENT hospital could not be used. Can I ask the Honourable Minister, what is the situation currently?
Mr. Speaker, sir, in my reply, I already said that that's why the ENT has been converted into a treatment center because of the CT scan. This CT scan is being used for patients suffering from COVID because it's a tool that can give, it is used for both the diagnostic and for other purpose of the treatment. Now, as far as the waiting list is concerned, the waiting list, there is no waiting list at ENT hospital for CT scan. If ever there is a waiting list, they have been done at the different centers where we have CT scans in all of our hospitals except the Flag Hospital, where they have been directed to do the CT scan. For the CT scan, the emergency have been catered in the different hospital, while for the waiting list, it's been done again in the different hospital, but as per the appointment and rendezvous.
Next question.
B237.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I wish at the very outset to point out that overpayment of pension has in fact been occurring over the years since the implementation of the National Pension Fund in 1979. The amount of overpayment is therefore cumulative. It occurs mostly where my ministry is not notified of any change in status of a beneficiary, such as death, remarriage of widows, or prolonged absence of a beneficiary from Mauritius. It is good to note that it is my ministry itself which discovers cases of overpayment dating back to several years for a series and appropriate measures taken in this respect. From July 2017 up to March 2021, the total amount of basic pensions paid is stand at 101 billion. My ministry has been able to discover an overpayment of 255.5 million during that period, representing 0.25% of the total amount of pensions paid. So far, out of the 255.5 million of overpayment, 136.4 million has already been recovered. For the financial year 2017-2018, an amount of 39.6 million has been recovered. For the financial year 2018-2019, 38.1 billion recovered. For the financial year 2019-2020, 31.6 million. And for the financial year 2020 to 31st March 2021, 27.1 million has been recovered. With regards to Part B of the question, my ministry has taken specific actions to address the issue of overpayment. They are as follows. First, following several meetings chaired by myself with representatives of the Civil Status Office in 2015, a mechanism was put in place for my ministry to be notified of the deaths of beneficiaries on a daily basis for the Info Highway platform. Since October 2015, we also get information from the Civil Status Office on the change in status of widows who are residing in Mauritius, again on a daily basis through the same platform. Since October 2018, timely information relating to the travel movements of beneficiaries are obtained from the Passport and Immigration Office for the same platform. We also receive information of beneficiaries over 60 years who have left Mauritius and been abroad for more than 6 months. As you may be aware, if a beneficiary stays abroad for more than 6 months, his pension is stopped. We have also sought the advice of the Attorney General Office to write off overpayments, which are already time-barred by 3 years under Article 2279 of the Civil Code Mauritian. The matter is currently, all the cases has been sent to the Internal Control Audit Ministry of Finance, and approval has been obtained for our ministry to take actions to write off some cases. My ministry is also working on an e-social security. In fact, being given that the project has huge cost implication, the approval of cabinet was sought for its implementation, and also in view of the complexity of the said project, the Ministry of Finance has advised my ministry to enlist the services of an independent consultant to oversee the project, and as such, the needful is being done.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I have 2 supplementary questions, if you would allow me, and then you can pass on to my other colleagues. Mr. Speaker, sir, despite the amount that have been recovered, overpayment keeps on increasing year by year because there are new cases every year. And on 30th of June 2020, Attorney General Office advised the ministry that where overpayments are due to deliberate action, negligence of officers, necessary disciplinary measures be taken against those officers. Therefore, can I ask the Honourable Minister where matters stand in relation to this recommendation from AG's office?
Well, the recommendations of the AG's office is if there is any case of mal done from the officers. This is not the case. I beg to differ from your opinion. You know, the issue of overpayment is a very complex issue. You need to understand, as I have said in my reply, cases of overpayment is being detected by my ministry itself. We are detecting all cases dating back more than a decade, and we are having new cases also. You must not forget that there has been a considerable increase in the pension paid to our senior citizens. So this inflates, of course, the amount of overpayment. But I must also say, even though the amount of overpayments is increasing, but if you see the trend, you realize that there is a decrease in the number of cases. For example, for the year 2017-2018, we have had 2,085 cases, whereas for the financial year 2020 up to 31st March of this year, we my ministry has discovered only 1,189 cases.
Yes, sir, I will kindly recommend the Honourable Minister to read the report of the Director of Audit. In fact, there are 5 pages, and the heading itself is no improvement regarding controls over overpayment. So my question to the Honourable Minister, is the Honourable Minister aware that mention was made in relation to 2 cases, 2 dead cases, whereby 3.7 million rupees were paid for more than 27 years to these 2 cases. 3.7 million rupees paid for 27 years where the people has already passed away. Is the Honourable Minister aware of this shocking information and what has been done at the level of his ministry?
Well, of course, Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm aware of the observations made in the audit report. I must say that as soon as the audit report was released, I took cognizance of same. Discussions have already started with the Commissioner and other officers at the level of my ministry. As I have said in my reply, a series of measures has already been taken to address the whole issue of overpayment. Well, we are taking the audit report very seriously. We are working on new specific measures to address this particular issue. But you need also to mention that in the report, the audit officer mentioned that there has been measures, and the measures taken are partly effective.
David.
B238.
Monsieur le Président, face à l'inquiétude croissante concernant l'ampleur de la pollution plastique et les impacts environnementaux et sanitaires qui en résultent, le programme gouvernemental 2020-2024 prévoit de faire de Maurice un pays sans plastique dans les délais les plus proches. Le 28 février 2020, l'approbation du gouvernement a en conséquence été demandée et obtenue pour l'introduction de règlements concernant l'interdiction des produits en plastique non biodégradables à usage unique et la révision du Environment Protection Banning of Plastic Bags Regulations 2015 dans le but de réduire le nombre de déchets plastiques générés dans le pays. Monsieur le Président, je suis informé que, conformément à la décision du gouvernement, pas moins de 16 réunions consultatives ont eu lieu avec diverses parties prenantes, publiques et privées, dont le Ministry of Finance, Economic Planning and Development, le International Trade Division of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, le Regional Integration and International Trade, le Bureau de l'Attorney Général, le département des douanes, la Mauritius Revenue Authority, la Chambre de commerce et d'industrie, la Mauritius Export Association et les fabricants et entreprises locaux de plastique, et ce, avant l'entrée en vigueur de l'Environment Protection Control of Single-Use Plastic Products Regulation 2020. Outre ces réunions en personne, des consultations ont également eu lieu par voie électronique et par l'échange de diverses correspondances. L'Environment Protection Control of Single-Use Plastic Products Regulation 2020, qui a été introduit le 15 juillet 2020, prévoyait la partie 1 du Second Schedule qui consiste en une liste de produits en plastique non biodégradable à usage unique qui entrerait en vigueur à partir du 15 janvier 2021. Tandis que la partie 2 du Second Schedule of the Regulations spécifie d'autres produits en plastique non biodégradables à usage unique pour lesquels un moratoire jusqu'au 14 avril 2021 a été prévu. Monsieur le Président, en ce qui concerne l'Environment Protection Banning of Plastic Bags Regulations 2020, qui a abrogé et remplacé l'Environment Protection Banning of Plastic Bags Regulation de 2015, je suis informé qu'une dizaine de réunions consultatives ont eu lieu avec les parties prenantes, notamment les fabricants de plastique locaux, la Mauritius Export Association, la Chambre de commerce, la Mauritius Revenue Authority et aussi le Ministry of Commerce and Consumer Protection. À un niveau plus opérationnel, Monsieur le Président, je suis informé que les discussions concernant les deux règlements ont été menées lors de plusieurs réunions du Environment Coordination Committee, qui comprend des représentants de divers organismes publics, y compris les autorités locales, ainsi qu'au niveau du Committee of Environment Liaison Officers, qui se compose de représentants de divers organismes publics. J'ai également rencontré le commissaire de police au sujet de l'application de ces règlements. De plus, avant l'entrée en vigueur des deux règlements, des consultations ont eu lieu avec les petites et moyennes entreprises et les fabricants locaux pour assurer la disponibilité d'alternatives biodégradables, compostables et respectueuses de l'environnement sur le marché. Je suis informé qu'au 15 avril 2021, 90 demandes d'enregistrement d'importateurs et de fabricants de produits en plastique biodégradable sous le Environment Protection Control of Single-Use Plastic Products Regulation 2020 et 115 demandes de l'enregistrement en vertu de l'Environment Protection Banning of Plastic Bags Regulation 2020 ont été reçues par mon ministère. Et cela, Monsieur le Président, démontre ainsi une évolution positive vers des alternatives compostables et biodégradables. Monsieur le Président, permettez-moi aussi de souligner que mon ministère a reçu des représentations de la Chambre de commerce et aussi de la MEXA concernant le Environment Protection Control of Single-Use Plastic. Et dans un esprit d'ouverture et de réactivité, plusieurs séances de travail ont été organisées avec toutes les personnes concernées. À la lumière des propositions reçues et compte tenu de l'environnement économique difficile résultant de la pandémie de Covid-19, le 8 janvier 2021, le gouvernement a accepté de prévoir un moratoire additionnel exceptionnellement pour certains produits dont je vais énumérer la liste. Et ce moratoire, c'est un moratoire qui est prévu jusqu'au 14 avril 2021. Ces produits sont les pailles en plastique, y compris les pailles en plastique scellées, faisant partie intégrante de l'emballage de notre produit, et aussi des plateaux en plastique et récipients avec couverts en plastique utilisés pour l'emballage de produits frais, surgelés, pré-cuits ou cuits, tels que fruits, légumes, farata, pâtisseries et sandwichs. Ces emballages sont communément appelés comme les hinge containers. Le gouvernement a également accepté un moratoire jusqu'au 14 janvier 2022 concernant l'interdiction des produits en plastique, ce qu'on appelle les Modified Atmosphere Packaging, notamment pour les gobelets et en plastique et bols en plastique utilisés uniquement pour l'emballage de produits alimentaires tels que produits laitiers, yaourts, glaces et desserts. Et aussi, dans ce qui concerne les Modified Atmosphere Packaging, cela concerne les produits alimentaires frais, cuits, pré-cuits, tels que viande, fruits de mer, etc. Monsieur le Président, un communiqué a été publié par le ministère le même jour, c'est-à-dire le 8 janvier 2021, et pour informer les parties prenantes et le grand public des nouvelles extensions, et pour assurer une communication ouverte et pour la bonne mise en œuvre du règlement, un groupe de travail impliquant les officiers de mon ministère, des représentants de la Chambre de commerce et aussi du MEXA a été mis en place.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Nous sommes 70 membres dans cette Chambre et je suis certain que les 70 parlementaires sont unanimement contre la pollution plastique dans notre pays. Pour autant, je ne peux m'empêcher de constater que la loi sur les Single-Use Plastic Products est entrée en vigueur sous un délai de 6 mois pour une liste de 10 produits au cours d'une année durement frappée par la pandémie et surtout par la difficulté de nos fabricants locaux de se déplacer à l'étranger pour étudier de nouveaux outils de production conformes à la nouvelle loi. Le ministre peut-il nous dire donc quelles ont été les mesures prises par le gouvernement pour accompagner les entreprises locales dans cette transition afin d'éviter les fermetures d'usines et des licenciements?
Monsieur le Président, permettez-moi de faire une remarque pour dire que l'énumération de la liste des produits et aussi le cut-off date qui a été prévu par le ministère de l'Environnement suit une logique très simple que je souhaiterais approfondir là-dessus. Monsieur le Président, tout changement requiert une certaine adaptation. C'est la raison pour laquelle les regulations qui datent de juillet 2020 ne sont entrées en vigueur qu'en janvier 2021 pour les single-use plastic, mars 2021 pour les sacs en plastique et avril 2021 pour les straws et autres hinge containers que je viens de mentionner. Monsieur le Président, l'interdiction des sacs en plastique date de janvier 2016. Nous savons tous pertinemment bien que si les sacs en plastique se trouvent aujourd'hui toujours sur le marché, c'est parce que quelques fabricants persistent à violer la loi. Ne soyez pas surpris, Monsieur le Président, de découvrir que ceux qui font généralement, je ne suis pas en train de généraliser, mais il y a quelques-uns, ceux qui font un peu plus de bruit sont toujours ceux qui ont été verbalisés à plusieurs reprises pour infraction à la loi depuis janvier 2016. Monsieur le Président, aucun compromis n'est possible dans la protection de l'environnement ou même dans la violation de la loi. Si nous voulons protéger les générations futures, il faut avoir, je dirais, la force de ses convictions et il fallait venir de l'avant avec un cut-off date. Monsieur le Président, que ce soit dans l'élaboration de la liste des produits interdits ou encore la fixation des cut-off dates, nous nous sommes assurés, après pourparlers avec toutes les parties prenantes, que 2 critères fondamentaux soient respectés. Premièrement, l'existence des produits alternatifs sur le marché. Deuxièmement, que ces produits alternatifs soient accessibles à des prix raisonnables. Monsieur le Président, je suis personnellement satisfait aujourd'hui que les consommateurs et aussi les petites et moyennes entreprises mauriciennes se sont adaptés avec cette exigence et que requiert la protection de l'environnement.
Le ministre peut-il déposer à la Chambre la liste des importateurs et la liste des fabricants locaux de produits en plastique biodégradable et à usage unique et qui sont déjà enregistrés auprès de son ministère?
Oui, mais j'ai déjà fait mention, Monsieur le Président, qu'il y a au 15 avril 2021, 90 demandes d'enregistrement d'importateurs de fabricants de produits de plastique biodégradables, ce qu'on appelle le Control of Single-Use Plastic, et aussi 115 demandes de l'enregistrement. Moi, je ne vois aucun empêchement à cela, Monsieur le Président. Bien sûr, cela sera fait d'une façon transparente.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Pourrait-on savoir qu'est-ce qui est fait au niveau du ministère pour contrôler l'importation de plastique auprès des commerçants réfractaires?
Monsieur le Président, j'ai eu personnellement une séance de travail avec le commissaire de police. Il faut bien le savoir et aussi le dire que les enforcement officers ne sont pas limités aux officiers du ministère de l'Environnement. Nous avons aussi les officiers de la force policière qui sont regroupés sous la police de l'environnement. Les différents inspecteurs, les différents enforcement officers sont aussi basés au niveau des différentes collectivités locales. Les membres de la force policière qui sont basés dans les différentes stations de police aussi sont considérés comme des enforcement officers. Donc nous avons eu plusieurs séances de travail avec toutes ces entités pour s'assurer de la bonne marche pour la mise en application de tous ces regulations. Et je dois dire qu'à ce jour, qu'il y a un certain compliance des différentes parties prenantes. Et moi-même, je suis assez satisfait de la réaction des grandes surfaces et aussi des petits commerces pour s'adapter avec les produits alternatifs. Et je dois dire aussi qu'il y a une bonne collaboration entre les grandes surfaces, les boutiques et aussi les petites et moyennes entreprises dans ce sens, Monsieur le Président.
Last supplementary.
Yes, thank you. Being given that the minister has himself mentioned aucun compromis en ce qu'il s'agit de la protection de l'environnement, can I ask him what are his plans for PET bottles, which are also single-use plastic products?
Oui, monsieur, je remercie l'honorable pour sa question, Monsieur le Président. L'honorable a parfaitement raison de soulever la question. Les PET bottles, Monsieur le Président, nous sommes à produire 125 millions à 130 millions de bouteilles en PET chaque année. Je l'ai moi-même dit, ce n'est pas une question de politique de 2 poids 2 mesures. Il faut absolument considérer la pollution plastique sous tous ses aspects. Les bouteilles en plastique font partie intégrante de la pollution dans ce pays et je n'hésiterai pas à qualifier que les producteurs des bouteilles en plastique sont les gros pollueurs, malheureusement. Selon les regulations qui datent de 2001, les embouteilleurs ont l'obligation de s'enregistrer avec le ministère de l'Environnement et aussi de collecter les bouteilles en plastique. Mais c'est avec regret que je le dis que nous l'avons constaté, de ces 125 millions à 130 millions de bouteilles en PET, il y a seulement 40% qui sont collectés par les différents embouteilleurs. Et les 60% qui restent sont malheureusement laissés dans la nature. Et moi, je considère que cela est quelque chose d'inacceptable. Nous sommes en train de travailler avec les différents embouteilleurs Nous sommes en train de travailler sur les différents types de propositions. Il y a plusieurs propositions qui sont venues de l'avant, y compris ce principe de consignment, dépôt refund. Et nous sommes en train de travailler sur tous les aspects. Et je dois dire que nous sommes arrivés à un stage assez avancé dans nos discussions avec les différents embouteilleurs. Dans un prochain avenir, je viendrai de l'avant avec une déclaration dans ce sens.
The table has been advised that PQ B225 have been withdrawn. Next question.
B239.
Mr. Speaker, sir, medical waste is any waste that is generated by byproduct of healthcare work at doctors' surgeries, dentists, hospitals, and laboratories. It includes any material that could come into contact with the body during diagnosis, drug administration, or any type of treatment. It's likely to be infectious or potentially infectious. I wish to inform the House that hazardous waste are defined under the Environment Protection Act and listed under the Environment Protection Standards for Hazardous Waste Regulation 2001 as waste that have the potential to cause harm or damage to human health and the environment due to their hazardous properties. These include waste from diagnosis, treatment, or prevention of disease and natal care. I'm also informed by the Ministry of Environment that following a request made by my ministry for the disposal of medical waste at the Marchicos landfilling, approval was granted for the disposal of 800 tons in 2018, 815 tons in 2019, and 946 tons in 2020. Mr. Speaker, sir, as regards the collection, treatment, and disposal of medical waste, I wish to inform the House that all the medical waste, such as swabs, cotton, gloves, drips, sanitary items, catheter, and stomach bags, blood bags, intravenous tubing, dressing in the wards units are removed on a daily basis and stored in yellow plastic bags and clinical sheds. All plastic bags are sealed and labeled before disposal in the clinical sheds. The medical waste are collected by private contractor twice weekly or as and when required. Same are sent to Marchicos landfilling for disposal following approval obtained from the Solid Waste Management Division of the Ministry of Environment, Solid Waste Management and Climate Change.
Mr. Speaker, sir, almost all, if not all, imported PPEs are made of plastic. Je vais faire le lien avec ma question précédente. May I know from the Honourable Minister if any effort is being made by his ministry to seek non-plastic PPEs or biodegradable plastic ones?
Mr. Speaker, sir, so far we are using all the PPEs made of plastics, but we already have the stocks of those, we already have in stocks of those PPEs in plastic, but in the future, I think we have to think in this line to have disposable PPEs so that we don't have to incinerate them.
MPU team.
The Honourable Minister just mentioned that for medical waste there is a private operator who comes and collects those wastes and go to Marchicos. Is he aware that in some public health institutions, hospitals, those medical wastes are actually incinerated?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, sir.
This is a causing concern. I have raised it in the past in this House, and this practice seems to be continuing.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, sir. So far, the information I have, it's only at the Barnseca Mental Health Care Center that there is an incinerator that is working and it is processing the medical waste that has to be incinerated.
MP Roy.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, sir. The Honourable Minister mentioned about the disposable waste going to Marchicos. Can he inform the House about the protocol adopted by his ministry during this process? Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, sir, protocol adopted for the medical waste, I think I've already highlighted in my reply, but for medical waste involved from different quarantine centers or treatment centers, all those wastes are being incinerated.
MP Juman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can the Honourable Minister inform the House whether all hospitals have a medical waste incinerator? Instead, he just said only one is operational at Brownsacre Hospital. But what about other hospitals?
Mr. Speaker, sir, as the Honourable Member just stated, that in other hospitals, especially where there are people residing in the same region, especially at G2 Hospital, the incinerator will not be operational. But at the same time, waste that have to be incinerated are sent to the incinerator of Veterinary Services Division of Ministry of Agro-Industry and Food Security for incineration.
MP Ganga Parsad, next question.
B240.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm informed that a total of 19 students were tested positive for COVID-19 and were on treatment. As such, they could not sit for their respective examinations. The breakdown is as follows. For the PSAC, 2 students, NC, 9 students, SC 4, HSC 4, a total of 19. As for part A2 of the question, 53 candidates were admitted in quarantine centres. Arrangements were made for them to sit for their examinations within a designated quarantine examination centre under strict health, sanitary and examination conditions. This group of 53 candidates comprised 16 students from PESAC, 15 NC students, 17 candidates for SC and 5 for HSC. Mr. Speaker, sir, in reply to part B of the question, one designated supervisor for the HSC examinations was tested COVID-19 positive. He was involved in a briefing session prior to the start of the examinations, and as a result, 6 invigilators were quarantined. As regards PSAC examination, 1 invigilator was found to be COVID positive following a random test effected in Highlands. The result was obtained on the evening of the 6th April, after which and 1 invigilator, 1 reader have been placed in quarantine, and the first 2 PCR tests carried out were negative.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Like me, you must also have taken cognizance of the fact that there are around 1,000 PESAC and 400 NC students, apart from those you have mentioned, who didn't take part in the exams, mainly because of the fear of contracting the virus. Can you inform the House if the MES has planned any receipt for these students so that they are not penalized in whatsoever way? And if yes, when will these exams be held?
Mr. Speaker, sir, the MES has not decided yet upon this particular issue, but one thing is for sure, that one can only resit for an exam if that student has taken part in the exam. You can't have a receipt if you haven't taken part in the exams.
Since we are at it, Honourable Minister, kindly inform the House when will the PESAC and NC results be made official?
The NC results would be made official by, most probably, by the end of May. And I would like, Mr. Speaker, sir, if it's possible, if you allow me, to state that when we talk about PSAC students, out of the 1,105 students who were mentioned not to have sat for the exams, 200 students were in fact school candidates. The remaining ones were private candidates or candidates from secondary schools attempting for PSAC.
Next question.
B241.
Mr. Speaker, sir, with your permission, I shall make a combined reply to PQs B241 and B282, as both relate to the same subject matter. In the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic in Mauritius in March 2020, schools were closed as from March 19th and reopened on the 1st July 2020. The Ministry worked out a general preparedness plan in consultation with the Ministry of Health and Wellness for the reopening of all schools and for cleaning of the departments of the Ministry. I wish to point out that a series of actions were taken by the Ministry to ensure a safe and secure environment. For example, full sensitization of all sanitary precautions to be adopted by the student community and the school personnel. Flyers on precautionary measures against COVID-19 were distributed in all educational institutions, as well as posters. Health and sanitary guidelines were formulated with the collaboration of the Ministry of Health and Wellness to ensure adequate health and sanitary measures are taken throughout the academic year. Guidelines included temperature checks upon arrival at schools, the mandatory use of face masks by students and personnel, frequent cleaning and disinfection of the classrooms, and high-touch places, amongst others, to ensure protection. Rapid PCR testing was carried out for all teachers and non-teaching staff to ensure health and safety of all students upon resumption. A series of sensitization workshops were also held with the collaboration of the World Health Organization and the Ministry of Health and Wellness, with members of school health clubs on infection, prevention and control of COVID-19. Mr. Speaker, sir, a procurement exercise was also launched for the cleaning of all government and aided primary schools and state secondary schools on a one-off basis by the Ministry. Bids were invited from registered contractors for cleaning, disinfection. Contracts were awarded to the following two service providers, namely Rollington Company Limited for 105 schools in Zone 1 for the total sum of 1,249,000 rupees, 92 schools in Zone 2 for a total sum of 1,248,000 rupees. And the second contractor was ELM Services Limited, 73 schools in Zone 3 for a total sum of 1,860,434 rupees. 56 schools in Zone 4 for the total sum of 1,689,847 rupees. The contract included transport, disinfection of all furniture, doors and windows of classrooms, offices, staircases, corridors, toilets, amongst others, in all the schools. The contract also included the warehouse of the Ministry. In addition, Mr. Speaker, sir, the Ministry has also an ongoing contract with Mulberry Facilities Management Company Limited, a government-owned company under the aegis of Lenscope, engaged in daily cleaning of all our primary and secondary schools. Cleaning and disinfection are also carried out by the general workers and office auxiliaries. Mr. Speaker, sir, for the second wave of COVID-19 this year, schools were closed as from the 10th March 2021. The cleaning and disinfection of schools during the period of examinations have been done as per the recent guidelines from the Ministry of Health and Wellness by Mulberry Facilities Limited and the personnel of the Ministry. No other contract was awarded for one-off sanitization and disinfection by my Ministry.
Given that we have to learn to adapt to new sanitary realities in the wake of COVID-19 pandemic, will the Honourable Minister, is she considering equipping our schools with sanitization tunnels for the safety and security of our children and staff in the days to come?
Mr. Speaker, sir, all the measures taken were guided by the Ministry of Health and Wellness, and the use of sanitizers actually is being done, but then no sanitizing tunnel has been planned for the near future.
Next question.
On a point of order, Mr. Speaker. The Minister replied my PQ together with the PQ of Honorable Ganga Person, and you didn't even give me a chance to put one supplementary question.
Did you express...
Of course I did.
I'm sorry for that, I didn't...
Thank you. If I may?
Please, go ahead.
Can I know from the Honorable Minister, for the procurement exercise, whether there has been a due diligence on the contractor to avoid any recurring problem that occurs last time during the confinement, and whether the contractors are well qualified to perform sanitization of the building and schools.
Mr. Speaker, sir, we didn't have any problem at the level of my ministry during the confinement period, and the contractors who had sent their bids were all registered contractors at the level of the ministry.
Next question.
B243.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm informed that as at December 2020, there were some 1,124 children attending grades 10 to 13 classes on the current database of the Social Register of Mauritius. The National Empowerment Foundation has, however, ordered 1,500 tablets to cater for both students on the current database and new entrants. With regards to Part A of the question, I'm informed by the National Empowerment Foundation that the consignment, which reached Mauritius on 13 April 2021, has already been cleared by the Customs Department. Testing and commissioning of the said tablets ordered has started yesterday. As Part B and C of the question, I'm informed by the National Empowerment Foundation that the contract for the supply, testing, and commissioning of the said tablets was awarded on 25th January 2021 to Lille Communications and Informatics Limited for the contract value of 17,279,152 inclusive of VAT.
Honorable Minister, I would like one clarification from you. Once these tablets are distributed to these children, to these kids, who does the follow-up? Is it the Ministry of Social Integration, your ministry, or the Ministry of Education?
The National Empowerment Foundation.
Has there been any precaution taken so that these students to whom these tablets are distributed, they are conversant with using this pedagogical tool?
Well, of course, if the students need support to deal with the tablets, we will do the needful.
They have been distributed, these tablets, Honorable Minister. Who is responsible for the maintenance, update, etc. of these tablets?
NUF itself.
Next question.
B244.
Yes. Mr. Speaker, sir, with regard to Part A of the question, I will list down the measures taken to alleviate the hardship of the planters in the current lockdown period. As the House will appreciate, planters and breeders, not only from the constituencies 15, 16, and 17, but from all over the island, have been authorized to use their farmer's card to attend to their fields and farms, despite the temporary restriction of movement order issued for the current lockdown period. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, sir, the validity period of those farmer's cards which had expired have been automatically extended until June of 2021 in order to avoid farmers having to proceed to the Small Farmers Welfare Fund to renew their respective farmer's card. Thirdly, Mr. Speaker, sir, despite the fact that constituencies 15, 16, and 17 were at some stage declared red zone with strict restrictions of movement on the inhabitants, those planters residing in that red zone were nevertheless authorized to travel to their fields using their planter's card. Furthermore, and fourthly, Mr. Speaker, sir, taking into consideration the volume of vegetables under production in those regions and in order to support their economic activity, my ministry, in collaboration with the Mauritius Police Force, organized for the planters to trade their harvested products on Tuesdays and Fridays, that is, on those days on which auction normally is carried out at Vakwa Market. Trading of fruits and vegetables were therefore carried out in the first instance at 7 police checkpoints situated around the boundaries of the red zone. A first exercise was carried out on the 19th of March from 5 in the morning to 8 in the morning. Based on the number of trading activities, the arrangements were reviewed and 2 sites only were retained, namely at Wooton and secondly at Pétrin. The arrangements were again reviewed as from 6th of April, and only Wooton, which is adjacent to the site of the National Wholesale Market, has been retained, and the hours have been extended until 9 in the morning. I am informed that on each day there are about 10 to 15 planters and some 8 vegetable sellers and intermediaries at the site. Fifth, Mr. Speaker, sir, planters of the red zone have been given special access by the police to leave the red zone and to proceed to the Agricultural Marketing Board to purchase potato seeds starting this month. Mr. Speaker, sir, with regard to part B of the question, I wish to reassure the planters community and the House that at the level of our ministry, several schemes are already in place which are of direct benefit to planters and are continuously being implemented. Moreover, the government is providing financial support indiscriminately to those who qualify for the self-employed assistance scheme or wage assistance scheme, and therefore planters and breeders who are eligible can also take advantage of these facilities. Finally, Mr. Speaker, sir, there are several proposals from the farming community which have been received in the context of Budget 2021-2022, and they are currently being studied and will be forwarded to the Minister of Finance. Thank you.
Monsieur le Président. Monsieur le ministre, vous êtes sûrement au courant que non seulement les planteurs ont souffert pendant le confinement et surtout dans la zone rouge, à Bonne-Terre, Carolaliane, Clairefonds et autres, mais ils se sont confrontés aussi à des difficultés financières dues aux augmentations des engrais, du sel et des semences. Le ministre envisagerait-il de supprimer certaines taxes et sur la TVA pour alléger leur fardeau?
This is premature for me to give a direct reply at this stage, Mr. Speaker.
Monsieur le ministre, peut-il informer la Chambre si la DBM peut aider ces planteurs de légumes, surtout dans la région de Bonne-Terre, dans le numéro 15? Et est-ce que la DBM peut proposer des prêts à ces planteurs qui ont perdu, il faut bien le dire, dans la zone rouge, des tonnes et des tonnes de légumes dans le dernier confinement?
There are a number of schemes which are already in place, Mr. Speaker. So I can recall at least 10 such schemes which are in operation in collaboration with other institutions. You know, I have in mind, for example, the sheltered farming scheme, rainwater harvesting, scheme for purchase of equipment, fruit protection, for banana bagging, for the upgrading of livestock farm, for pasture development, for cattle breeding, goat and sheep breeding, for the acquisition of CCTV camera as well as for the promotion of beekeeping. I can name a few more, and there are still budgetary provisions for these schemes, and these will continuously be implemented. Over and above, as I said again, there are other proposals being submitted to the Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can the Minister state whether a survey has been conducted to estimate crops that were left unharvested in the fields?
The survey has just, let me start again. The House will appreciate that for the constituencies of 15, 16 and 17, it is only very recently that the red zone, entre guillemets, has been reviewed following mass testing of inhabitants in the region. So now that the region is no longer a red zone, this facilitates entry into those areas for officers. Now, it is not only a question of a loss due to the markets not being accessible. The House will appreciate it's not only, I repeat, not only farmers and breeders in the red zone and circonscription 15, 16, 17 who are facing difficulties, but all farmers and breeders around Mauritius. The House will appreciate that les bazars sont fermés. That's why. That is, I think, the main reason why les produits ne peuvent être vendus, but we are leaving no stone unturned to provide assistance to farming and breeding community in the whole island.
B245.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm informed by the Municipal Council of QPIP that an amount of 4 million rupees has been provided under the Local Development Project 2020-2021 for the resurfacing of 10 roads within the town of QPIP, and the work are in progress now. The expected date of completion is end of May 2021. I'm tabling a list of these roads. Moreover, an additional amount of 19 million rupees has been made available under the Economic Recovery Fund for the resurfacing of roads. Bids were invited, and the bids received are presently under evaluation. Additionally, a sum of 17.8 million rupees has been earmarked by the Council for patching work in all the wards of the township of QPIP, and the contract has already been awarded for the sum of 5 million rupees. Work order to the tune of 1 million for patching work along 21 roads has so far been issued, and work are in progress. A list of these roads is also being tabled. I'm further informed that the Road Development Authority has issued work orders for the milling and resurfacing of the main road under its responsibility in the constituency number 17 during the current financial year as follows. Cauchy Military Road, B6, Phoenix Mayberg Road, A10, Phoenix Plaisance Road, A10 again, Coriolis Road, B86 at Midlands, and the National Development Unit proposed in the forthcoming days to award contract for both resurfacing and construction of 7 roads in constituency number 17.
That's his question.
J'espère que ces routes vont être asphaltées. Entre-temps, il y a une vidéo en ligne et j'aimerais déposer le lien de cette vidéo sur la table de l'Assemblée pour que le VPM puisse regarder lui-même. Mais entre-temps, puisqu'on est à la veille du budget, est-ce que le vice-premier ministre peut prendre un engagement aujourd'hui d'allouer plus de budget au conseil municipal de QPIP pour que le conseil municipal de QPIP puisse faire asphalter ces routes?
No, this is not a good question. I don't know if you...
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Can the Honourable Minister inform the House what is the total amount of money being disbursed by the government for the maintenance of this road in constituency number 17?
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, sir. Under the LDP, that is Local Development Program, 4 million, I've just mentioned 4 million. Under the Economic Recovery Fund, 19 million. Under the fund of the local authorities, that is QPIC, 17.8 million, ODA, 18.5 million, NDU, 13.9 million. That makes a total of 73.2 million this year.
Next question.
B246.
Mr. Speaker, I'm informed by the Municipal Council of QPIP that a temporary structure of the Forum of QPIP is fully operational and around 400 vegetable sellers trade thereat on Wednesdays and Saturdays. I'm informed that the following renovation work have already been effected at Forum at the beginning of this year. Renovation of existing toilet, replacement of fluorescent electric tube by waterproof LED lights, and replacement of gutter installation of downpipes of a length of 40 meters. Mr. Speaker, the following additional work would be considered in the next financial year. Confection and replacement of 700 all-metal stall at an estimated cost of 3 million rupees. The second phase of replacement of the gutter pipes for rainwater discharge at an estimated cost of 200,000 rupees and painting of the roof at an estimated cost of 3 million rupees.
Monsieur le Président, puisque le forum de Cuepip est presque pas praticable quand il pleut, et la ville de Cuepip, souvent, il pleut, est-ce que l'honorable vice-premier ministre peut considérer et demander à la mairie de Cuepip d'exempter les frais de location des étaux aux maraîchers jusqu'à la rénovation du forum?
Well, I think that will have to be considered later. I mean, because we have a lot of, as you know, with the COVID situation now, it's not just the COVID, it's not Cuepip only that are affected, but a lot of other local authorities, market in different places are affected. So this is a different question. A decision would have taken at different level.
Try at least a discount on the price because it is among the most expensive. It is among the most expensive Mauritius.
Order. Honorable Danu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to know from the Honourable Minister, does the Forum of Cuepip form part of the master plan of Cuepip, which is being proposed by the Deputy Prime Minister?
Mr. Speaker, sir. Following the government decision to implement the urban terminal at Cuepip, in the context of the Metro Express project, the Minister of Housing and Land Use Planning decided to prepare a master plan for the central area of Cuepip and its vicinities. The master plan, which is being prepared under the chairmanship of the Deputy Prime Minister, is still under preparation at the level of the Ministry of Housing and Land Use. The draft master plan also covers the area to be served in future by the Metro Express project at La Visie. The master plan provides for the relocation of Forum in an economic development zone which is being envisaged further south at La Visie.
The table has been advised that PQ B25657, B264, 265, 266, 271 have been withdrawn. Next question.
B247.
Monsieur le Président, j'ai été informé par la Mauritius Revenue Authority que 88 chevaux de course ont été importés pendant la période allant du 1er janvier 2021 au 15 avril 2021 au titre de la saison hippique de 2021. Monsieur le Président, en ce qui concerne la partie A de la question, 80 chevaux ont été importés d'Afrique du Sud, 6 chevaux de Nouvelle-Zélande et 2 chevaux d'Australie. Pour ce qui est de la partie B de la question, je vais déposer le prix d'achat respectif des chevaux importés. Monsieur le Président, en ce qui concerne la partie C de la question, j'ai été informé que le protocole du service des douanes de la MRA n'a pas été récemment modifié. Merci.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Est-ce que l'honorable ministre pourrait la dernière phrase, répéter la dernière phrase concernant les protocoles, s'il vous plaît?
Je vais répéter. J'ai été informé par la MRA, Mauritius Revenue Authority, que le protocole du service des douanes de la MRA n'a pas été récemment modifié. Est-ce que Bon, c'est pas à moi de poser ces...
La question, Monsieur le Président, en fait, ça concerne, est-ce que les protocoles établis ont été strictement suivis? Bon, je vais poser une autre question supplémentaire. L'honorable ministre aura probablement l'occasion de répondre aussi à cette question. Monsieur le Président, je voudrais savoir de l'honorable ministre si les vérifications nécessaires ont été effectuées afin d'établir si tous les propriétaires de chevaux importés pour la saison 2021 sont des propriétaires de bonne foi, je veux dire genuine ones.
Je vais revenir, Monsieur le Président, je vais revenir par rapport à la question qui a été posée. La partie C de la question concernait la MRA. C'est pour cela que la MRA disait qu'il n'y a pas eu de changement dans les protocoles récemment. C'est pour cela qu'ils m'ont dit qu'il n'y a pas eu de changement de protocole, donc qu'il n'y a pas eu à suivre de nouvelles législations, etc. Si l'honorable membre est en train de parler des changements de protocole concernant la GRA, là on parle de la Gambling Regulatory Authority, là cela concerne les dispositions concernant la FATF. À ce moment-là, quand il va venir avec une question spécifique sur le sujet, je me ferai un devoir de lui répondre avec toutes les informations sur ce sujet.
Monsieur le Président, d'après certaines informations qui me sont parvenues, il y aurait un puissant homme d'affaires qui aurait utilisé des prête-noms pour importer un nombre important de chevaux. Et dans le milieu, on parle de plus d'une soixantaine qui ont été placés dans différentes écuries qui seront en opération cette saison. Ce qui est, à mon avis, contraire au protocole. L'honorable ministre des Finances a-t-il été informé de cela?
Monsieur le Président, non. Je remercie l'honorable membre de cette question. Je ne suis pas informé de cela. Si jamais il a des informations précises à ce sujet, je lui demanderai de bien vouloir me les fournir pour que je puisse faire le nécessaire auprès de la MRA et aussi de la GRA.
Justement, concernant les protocoles, c'est-à-dire les conditions qui sont imposées par la MRA et le ministère des Finances, autour de l'importation des chevaux, le ministre peut-il nous dire quelle est l'institution, en fait, qui a la responsabilité de s'assurer que les mesures mises en place sont suivies correctement?
Monsieur le Président, concernant les dispositions concernant la MRA, ce sera la MRA de suivre les différentes dispositions des protocoles de la loi par rapport à la MRA Act. Concernant le Gambling Regulatory Authority, cela c'est autre chose, c'est à l'autorité concernée, la MTC, de prendre contact avec la GRA pour suivre les différents protocoles. Donc il y a deux institutions qui régissent les courses.
No more bets. Next question.
B248, please.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm informed that since the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic in Mauritius, a protocol for the care and treatment of patients infected with COVID-19 has been prepared in light of international literature and findings. The protocol is regularly updated as new evidence emerges and according to WHO recommendations. The protocol used by my ministry has been devised by a panel of experts comprising doctors holding specialist qualifications in internal medicine, infectious diseases, gastroenterology, geriatrics, emergency medicine, anesthesia, nephrology, gynecology, obstetrics, pediatrics, and microbiology. The latest version of the protocol dates back to 25th February 2021, and this version was in use for the period end of March to beginning of April 2021. The patients are discharged in line with this protocol. Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm further informed that this protocol, similar to other medical protocols, provides guidance for the care and treatment of the disease based on the medical history of the patient, age, presence of comorbidities and other immune deficiency, as well as in relation to the clinical, biological, and radiological status of the patient. The protocol also establishes the admission and discharge criteria of patients based on, inter alia, the stage and severity of the illness and the clinical and biological evolution of the patients. Consequently, a protocol for the patient's care and treatment needs to be adopted by the treating doctor in light of the situation of each patient. In line with the established protocol, an asymptomatic patient will undergo a PCR test on day 7 and day 10, and the patient will remain in the treatment center as for at least 10 days. The patient will be allowed to leave the treatment center only upon 2 consecutive negative PCR test results. In case the patient is tested positive for COVID-19 on the 10th, a PCR test will be carried out every 3 days. When obtaining a negative PCR result, the test will be repeated at least after 24 hours, and upon 2 consecutive PCR tests, the patient will be discharged from the treatment center. Mr. Speaker, sir, I wish to inform the House that there is a panel of experts whose mandate is also to determine and decide upon the release of atypical patients, upon the verification of criteria like age, clinical status of the illness, clinical status of the patient, immune status, length of admission in treatment center, clinical status on the decision-making day, the patient's serological status, and the PCR test results. Additionally, the panel will then have to take a decision on these particular cases, and the decisions will be based on the criteria specified earlier, and including the cycle threshold city. The city value corresponds to the number of amplification cycles needed for the detection of the genetic material of the virus. The greater the amount of amplification cycles needed corresponds to very limited amount of genetic material present. When there is only traces of the virus, more amplification cycles will be needed for detection. This means that the city value is high. At this stage, for a single patient, the city can sometimes be negative or considered as being positive, but with city values which are highly positive. This will once more indicate that the patient is no longer infective. I'm further informed that the above applies for patients who have been tested positive for COVID-19 and who are admitted in treatment centers. Regarding patients who have been tested positive in quarantine centers, they are immediately transferred to treatment centers until the end of treatment.
Monsieur le Président, peut-on savoir de l'honorable ministre, est-il informé qu'il y a au moins une personne qui a passé 17 jours en quarantaine à l'hôtel La Pirogue, d'après toujours les renseignements qui me sont parvenus, et qui a été testé positif et qui, malgré tout, a été autorisé à rentrer chez lui. Est-ce que l'honorable ministre est au courant de cet état de choses? Parce que cette information a largement été véhiculée dans les médias.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, sir. This the honorable member is saying is that's right. The patient may have a positive test after he has been discharged, but this is based on the city values. City values for patients who have been tested positive more than maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, that city values will indicate whether this positive test, they are still infective or not. And at the same time, we have to see whether this patient has already the serological status to be discharged. So based on serological status, positivity of the patient, and the general condition of the patient, the decision being taken by the expert who decide amongst to discharge or not the patient.
Monsieur le Président, l'honorable ministre peut-il nous dire si, une fois autorisés à quitter le centre de traitement, ces personnes qui, justement, ont été testées négatives, donc autorisées à partir, est-ce qu'ils ont un protocole à suivre avant de pouvoir circuler normalement?
Normally, Mr. Speaker, sir, the protocol is the patient has to stay in isolation for 1 week before they have been allowed to move to go outside. But at the same time, we have to patients before being discharged, they've been after they've been discharged, they've been followed on phone. For any problem, they have to contact the treatment center so that the appropriate advice being given.
Next question.
B249.
Mr. Speaker, sir, following the observation made in the report of the Director of Audit on the accounts of government for the financial year 2019-2020, regarding disbursement of funds to the Mauritius Multisports Infrastructure Limited, MMIL, by my ministry. I have set up a committee chaired by my permanent secretary and comprising of representatives of MMIL as well as the concerned officers of my ministry. The term of reference of the committee is to examine in depth the observations and recommendations made by the Director of Audit in view of proposing a stronger disbursement mechanism between my ministry and MMIL.
Monsieur le Président, des documents financiers qui ne sont pas signés, des demandes de fonds qui ne sont pas expliquées, comme l'a si bien souligné le directeur de l'audit, il faut croire qu'il y a une absence totale d'organisation et de standards au niveau du MMIL. De ce fait, l'honorable ministre peut-il nous dire qui est l'actuel directeur justement du MMIL, quelles sont ses responsabilités, ses salaires et les autres conditions attachées à ce poste?
Monsieur le Président, je peux tout simplement dire qui est le chairperson de MMIL, mais évidemment, par rapport à toutes les conditions rattachées à ce poste, je n'ai pas ces renseignements avec moi, puisque la question n'était pas directement liée. Donc, le chairperson de MMIL, c'est M. Jean-Pierre Seusier.
Le ministre pourrait, Monsieur le Président, déposer justement les informations qu'il n'a pas en ce moment en sa possession par rapport aux responsabilités du directeur de MMIL, de ses salaires et d'autres conditions attachées. Est-ce qu'il pourrait, est-ce qu'il est disposé à déposer sur la table de l'Assemblée ces informations?
Je vais prendre les renseignements nécessaires, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Monsieur le Président, le ministre, dans sa réponse, a mentionné qu'il a mis en place un comité pour regarder dans l'affaire en question. Est-ce qu'on peut savoir du ministre qui sont les membres sur ce comité?
Donc, Monsieur le Président, comme je l'ai dit dans ma réponse initiale, donc ce comité sera présidé par le Permanent Secretary de mon ministère. Et donc, il y a aussi un DPS responsable de finances dans le comité. Aussi, the Manager of Financial Operations of my ministry. The Assistant Manager, Internal Control of my ministry. The Office Management Assistant will act as Secretary. And the Chief Operating Officer of the MMIL forms part of this committee.
Juman.
B250.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I wish to inform the House that as at date, 1,579 patients are following treatment in the 7 government dialysis centers and 6 private dialysis centers. Since March 5, 2021, as at date, 76 patients following dialysis treatment have passed away. In March 2021, out of 1,556 patients who are on dialysis, 53 have passed away. From April 2021 till date, out of 1,579 patients who are on dialysis, 23 have passed away. However, none of the patients following dialysis treatment in our dialysis centers passed away in the dialysis center itself since March 5th, 2021. In case of any medical complications during dialysis, the dialysis patient is transferred to intensive care units of the hospital to which the dialysis center is attached. Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm informed that since March 2021, 3 patients who were following treatment for dialysis at Suivez Hospital have passed away directly related to COVID-19. 2 of them were admitted at Suivez Hospital and 1 at ENT Hospital. I'm further informed that 5 positive COVID-19 patients and 2 COVID-19 negative patients passed away with primary cause of death due to other comorbidities.
Thank you. Merci, Monsieur le Président. Puisque vous êtes de bonne humeur, peut-être je vais prendre un peu plus de temps pour ma question, s'il vous plaît. Lors d'une conférence de presse, le docteur Yip, à vos côtés, Monsieur le ministre, nous a bien fait comprendre, je cite, le stress, comme vous êtes au courant, peut déclencher, je cite, le stress, comme vous êtes au courant, peut déclencher le décès d'un patient positif au Covid. Et autre facteur, c'est l'alimentation. Comment vous expliquez-vous, Monsieur le ministre, qu'une patiente nommée FM, qui a été dialysée le 25 mars, le lendemain, le ministère l'informe qu'ils vont la récupérer pour placer dans une centre de quarantaine. On la récupère à 17h05. S'il vous plaît. Je veux pas...
Allow him to reply.
Oh, ça, je vais vous poser ma question. S'il vous plaît, 2 minutes.
You have another question?
C'est très important. Je n'aurai pas d'autres supplémentaires. On la récupère à 17h05. Ce n'est que le 23h qu'elle a pu regagner accès à une chambre à l'hôtel Tamassa, suivi d'un dîner à 23h40, menu biryani poulet et gâteau au chocolat.
Oh, come on.
Attends, s'il vous plaît. C'est une patiente.
Put your question.
Je
You have
vous
the
explique.
right to put a
Ma
question.
question va suivre.
You're making a statement.
Et le lendemain, pas de dialyse pour le patient. Monsieur le ministre, comment pas de dialyse et le lendemain déjeuner min-fruit. Mais monsieur le ministre, c'est pas un cas.
Now, I'll move to the next question. If you don't have a question, yeah, I'll move to the next question.
Monsieur le Président.
I give you a last chance.
Please. Monsieur le ministre, ce n'est pas suffisant pour donner une enquête indépendante, pour situer les responsabilités, et plus important que ça ne se reproduise plus à l'avenir.
Mr. Speaker, sir, the first part of the question is related to the stress that these patients have bared. In the PNQ today morning, I've already given the condition, the situation, how have we been able to detect these patients, and in which circumstances we have transported all these patients. All the details I've given to that. Now, second part of the question about the diet. Now, Mr. Speaker, sir, the patients, 20 patients follow a strict diet regarding the disease that they are suffering from, and 80% do not follow that dieting. At that point of time, I agree with him that the catering officers over there, they have given the whatever be the food biryani or all that. But at the same time, Mr. Speaker, sir, we have been a little bit flexible with patients so that their relatives can bring food for them. And in that food, what they have brought for them in the centers, there is also questions. But Mr. Speaker, sir, it's not the time now that we started doing a post-mortem on the diet of these patients.
Because, sir, from the PNQ and the question today, we know that dialysis patients that were COVID negative went to Soyak Hospital, interacted with nurses who were COVID positive, and later on, these dialysis patients became COVID positive, and some of them died. Doesn't the Honourable Minister think that the state responsibility is engaged and the state has failed all these dialysis patients?
Mr. Speaker, sir, I object with this comment he has made. How can he say that a nursing officer, a staff who is COVID positive, is working with patients with dialysis? All those who have been tested positive, nursing staff or patients with dialysis, are being sent to treatment centers. Patients who has undergone dialysis who are tested negative, obviously, they have done their dialysis with staff. Today morning, I've enumerated how we have managed to get staff in the treatment centers.
Can I ask a question about the effectiveness of the vaccines on those patients? Has there been any clinical trial that has been done with regards to the vaccines that are being administered on those dialysis patients?
Mr. Speaker, sir, the efficacy of vaccine, daily we're having literatures coming up about efficacy of the different vaccines. I think I don't have the information right now, but obviously if you have a question on the effectiveness of vaccine, it keeps on changing. I will come up with saying that effective of vaccines, all the different vaccines are obvious.
Will not undergo any post-mortem. Next question, MP Duman.
B251.
Mr. Speaker, sir, in line with diplomatic practice, a note verbal was issued to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, informing of the change in residency of His Excellency Mr. Shaukat Ali Sudan, Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of the Republic of Mauritius, to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia from Riyadh to Mauritius. Thank you.
Honourable Minister, is it possible to table a copy of the letter of appointment as roving ambassador in Saudi Arabia?
You mean the note verbal? Well, the honourable member should know, Mr. Speaker, sir, that the honourable member should know, Mr. Speaker, sir, that diplomatic correspondences are formally exchanged between states, between government, through a note verbal, in line with the diplomatic practices as governed by the Vienna Convention. And a note verbal is one of the many forms of communication between governments. In fact, this is the most common form of communication, but it is not considered as a public document, and it would not be appropriate for me, Mr. Speaker, sir, to circulate the said note.
Can the Honourable Minister only give us the date the note verbal was issued, please? Only the date we need.
Yes. On the 1st March 2021, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Regional Integration and International Trade issued the note verbal informing of the change in residency of His Excellency Mr. Sudan to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia.
Was the note verbal pre-PQ or post-PQ? The PQ where you did not give a right answer.
Well, Mr. Speaker, sir, I will leave. The honourable member has the date when the PQ was set. It's up to him to find out whether the note verbal was before or after, because I mentioned the date in which the note verbal was issued, the 1st of March.
Before the last one, Honourable Dano.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Can the honourable member inform the House what is the difference between a roving ambassador and an ambassador?
Well, Mr. Speaker, a roving ambassador usually has residence in his country and is accredited in many other jurisdictions.
Next, last supplementary.
Given that the Honourable Minister, being given that the ambassador is now based in Mauritius, may we know what will happen to the representational cars purchased, one Exis and one Jaguar at the embassy?
Well, if the honourable member comes with a substantive question, I will certainly give him the answer.
Let's hear Honourable Omia.
B252.
March 2020.
Monsieur le Président, Monsieur le Président, le Premium Visa a été introduit en novembre 2020 en tant que nouveau programme de Travel Visa Scheme. Le Premium Visa est délivré pour une période d'1 an renouvelable. Introduit dans le contexte de la pandémie de la Covid-19, le Premium Visa vise à attirer les professionnels, des touristes de moyen et long terme, des retraités, des investisseurs et ceux dont les enfants étudient à Maurice. Les non-ressortissants qui demandent ce visa doivent être titulaires d'une police d'assurance valide, couvrant à la fois les aspects médicaux et liés au voyage. Le demandeur doit également détenir la preuve qu'il dispose de fonds suffisants pour couvrir ses dépenses. L'Economic Development Board m'a informé que depuis le lancement du programme, 550 demandes ont été reçues. Monsieur le Président, en ce qui concerne la partie A, de la question. Au 15 avril 2021, 304